You know that feeling when you finish an amazing book or TV show and your first thought is, I want to start it all over again? Or maybe when you're stressed out, you just automatically reach for that one story you know and love. Well, let's get into why we do that. So many of us do, and the reasons behind it, they're way more fascinating than you'd probably guess.
Right. So what's the deal here? What is it about these familiar worlds that just keeps pulling us back in? I mean, is it just plain old nostalgia? Or is this something, I don't know, something deeper going on inside our heads when we pick that comfort read over the shiny new thing? Well, it turns out the answer is, it's a whole story about our own psychology, and it's a pretty big one. It's about our deep, fundamental need for safety, our ability to form these incredible connections, and even, get this, our own personal growth. And it's all unlocked by something as simple as rereading a book.
Okay, so let's start with this pull, this allure of the familiar. Because this habit, it's not just some weird quirk some of us have. Nope, it's a super common, deeply human thing that actually tells us a lot about what we need.
And this quote, man, it just nails it, doesn't it? It's not just about watching or reading something. It feels like a relationship. That whole visiting an old friend idea, that's a huge clue to what's going on psychologically. It's warm, it's totally reliable, and it's just so comforting. All right, let's peel back that first layer, look under the hood a bit, and see what's actually happening inside our minds. Why does our brain crave comfort so much? And how in the world does a familiar story give it what it wants? Okay, so check this out. It's all about how our brain reacts differently to stuff. When we see something new, our brain kind of goes on high alert. It takes a lot of energy to figure out, and, from way back in our evolution, new stuff could be dangerous. But familiar things, that's different. They're predictable. It's like a safe harbor in the middle of a chaotic storm, and it gives our brains a break they desperately need. And this whole drive for comfort, it's not just about stories. I mean, think about Punch. He was this abandoned baby macaque, and zookeepers gave him a little stuffed animal. What did he do? He clung to it for dear life, for security. That little toy became his comfort object, and it did the exact same thing for him that our favorite books or movies do for us. It provided a little bit of stability in a really uncertain world. All right, let's get into the actual science here, because there's a real psychological principle that explains this whole preference perfectly. It's called the mere exposure effect. So here's the really wild part. A lot of the time, we don't like things because they're actually, better. We like them just because we're familiar with them. We've seen them before. Just being exposed to something over and over again, even if you don't really notice it, can make you feel more positive about it. It's this powerful, kind of sneaky subconscious force that's shaping what we like. So how does this actually play out in our brains? Well, it's basically a three-step thing. Step 1, you see or hear something again and again. Step 2, with every repetition, your brain gets a little faster and better at processing it. It's called perceptual fluency. Basically, your brain doesn't have to work as hard. And then, step 3, here's the kicker, your brain mistakes that ease of processing for a good feeling. It literally thinks, that was easy. I must really like this thing. Now, this whole effect gets even more intense when we're not just talking about an object or a song, we're talking about a person, even if that person isn't real. And that's where we get into this fascinating idea of having friends we've never actually met. This brings us to a really cool concept called parasocial relationships. It's just a fancy term for those surprisingly deep, one-sided friendships we build with characters from books or TV. Think about it. Our brains evolved to form strong social bonds to survive, right? The problem is, our brains haven't exactly updated for the 21st century. They can't always tell the difference between a real person in our life and a really well-written character we just spent 80 hours with. And look, these aren't just some silly, trivial connections. Research from Virginia Commonwealth University has shown that these fictional bonds can have some pretty profound effects on us in the real world. For instance, if you form a really positive connection with a character who's very different from you, let's say you fall in love with a character from another country in a show, you can actually become more open-minded and less prejudiced toward people from that group in real life. It's incredible. So you can almost think of stories as a kind of social simulator, like a flight simulator, but for human interaction. When we're deep into a story, watching characters deal with all sorts of complex social stuff, the social parts of our brain literally light up. It's like we're getting a safe, no consequences, rehearsal for life, and it can seriously improve our social skills. So, as you can see, going back to the stories we love is way more than just chasing that warm, fuzzy feeling of nostalgia. It's actually an active process, one that gives us some real, tangible benefits for our brains and our emotions.
In fact, psychologists are finding that people who reread are often developing some really sophisticated mental habits. Think about it. Instead of always needing something new, they're choosing to go deep. They're thinking about how they've changed since the last time they read it, which is a fancy thing called metacognition. The best way to put it is, you're not just rereading the book, you're rereading yourself. You start to see patterns you missed before, and every single time you go back, you're making that memory even stronger.
Okay, so let's put all the pieces together. What are the big psychological wins here? Well, first, it's a super reliable way to lower anxiety and just get some emotional comfort. Second, it's like holding up a mirror to yourself, showing you how much you've grown. Third, you're always finding new layers to the story. And finally, just hanging out with those characters you love can literally trigger a dopamine hit, that feel-good chemical, giving you a real mood boost.
So when you really stop and think about it, this thing that seems so simple, just rereading a story, it pays off in a huge way. It's pretty much a triple win. Our brains get the emotional safety they're wired to look for, we get a much deeper understanding of the story itself, and we get this amazing tool for looking at our own lives.
And all of this brings us right back to where we started. That urge to go back to a story you already love. It's not a lazy habit, it's not a waste of time, it's actually a gift you're giving to